I was rinsing out my mug when the barking started. Low and anxious, I turned toward the kitchen window and spotted her. A woman in a flamingo-pink blazer striding purposefully up my gravel driveway, clutching a clipboard like it was a sword. Behind her, a man in a baggy suit hurried to keep up, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "You are in direct violation of HOA codes 3.2, 5.7, and 8.9, she bellowed, her voice cutting through the quiet expanse of the land I'd bought just 3 months earlier. "This is private property, and you've got 24 hours to vacate or face formal eviction." Her phone was raised, clearly recording everything. I stepped out onto the porch slowly, mug still warm in my hand, and took a long look at the scene. The woman, who I'd later learn was named Patricia Henley, though she insisted everyone address her as President Henley, froze when I reached for my back pocket. Her swagger stalled the moment I flipped open my wallet to reveal a federal badge. "Before you say another word, ma'am," I said calmly, "I'm Special Agent Marcus Chun, Bureau of Land Management. Care to explain what you're doing on my land, threatening me with eviction?" Whatever fire she'd walked in with fizzled instantly. Her expression shifted from indignation to hesitation to something close to panic. Her arm wavered. The recording stopped. Let me rewind. 3 months back, I finally bought the land I dreamed of. 40 peaceful, open acres just outside the suburban sprawl of Cedar Heights. After a career mediating property disputes and enforcing land use regulations, I was ready for quiet. I double-checked every boundary, every easement, every survey. This place wasn't just outside Cedar Heights' HOA jurisdiction. It was an entire mile away from it. But Patricia Henley didn't care about facts. Just 2 weeks after I moved in, she showed up unannounced to deliver a monologue about expanded jurisdiction. According to her, the HOA board had voted to extend their control to any property within visual range of the subdivision. My fence was the wrong color. My animals were unauthorized. Even my barn, she declared, was an architectural disgrace. I tried to explain calmly that her HOA had no power here. "We'll see about that," she said. And so began the petty campaign. First came the absurd violation notices, slipped into my mailbox like passive-aggressive love letters. One accused my grass of being a 1/4 inch too long. Another claimed unauthorized equine presence. My favorite? A formal complaint about my rooster allegedly crowing during prohibited hours, despite the nearest HOA home being over a mile away. But the nonsense didn't stop there. Patricia started holding emergency meetings about my property. She'd post on the HOA's Facebook group after the meetings had already taken place, always claiming unanimous support for remedial action. According to my neighbor Earl, a retired farmer who'd lived here since the Eisenhower administration, she'd gone door to door with a petition accusing me of running a black market livestock ring. I told her the only thing illegal was her stomping across other folks' land with that damn clipboard. He chuckled. Eventually, she lawyered up, hired some green attorney named Bradley Morse who clearly didn't do his homework. I received a cease and desist letter on official-looking letterhead demanding I stop all non-compliant agricultural operations. I filed it in my cabinet, right beside the land deed and a notarized boundary survey from the county. The final straw? A Facebook post from Patricia that showed up one morning. Official notice. The Cedar Heights HOA board has approved eviction proceedings for the illegal ranch at 4200 Old Creek Road. Final notice to be served at 10 a.m. tomorrow. That post was riddled with responses from confused residents asking how the HOA could evict someone who wasn't even part of their community. Patricia responded to each one with a copy-paste reply about extended oversight and protecting neighborhood standards, which led to that scene on my front porch. "This is harassment," I told her, keeping my tone even. "And distributing fake legal notices? That's a felony." "They're not fake," she insisted, waving the clipboard again. "I have every right as HOA president to govern within your actual jurisdiction," I cut in, "which this property isn't part of. I've been patient, but now you've stepped over the line. Trespassing, impersonating legal authority, and harassment. Those are crimes." Her nephew, still standing awkwardly on my gravel drive, tugged at her sleeve. "Aunt Pat, maybe we should." "Quiet, Brandon," she snapped, eyes locked on me. She squared her shoulders again. "You can't scare me. I know people. The mayor is my cousin." "Ma'am," I said as I pulled out my phone, now recording, "I'm officially documenting this for the Department of Justice. You sure you want to keep going?" She deflated like a popped balloon. That afternoon, I filed a formal complaint with the DOJ and looped in the local district attorney. Turns out I wasn't her only target. 3 other landowners, also outside the HOA's boundary, had received similarly bogus threats. The fallout was fast. Within 2 weeks, both the DOJ and the county sheriff had served Patricia with cease and desist orders. A criminal investigation was opened into her use of fraudulent documents and repeated trespassing. My land's been quiet since. No more pink blazers or surprise visitors. Just open sky, honest work, and the sound of my rooster crowing exactly when he pleases. The storm had been brewing for months, but no one expected it to break quite like this. When the Cedar Heights HOA finally called a real emergency meeting, an official one, not another one of Patricia's backyard power huddles, I made sure to be there. I sat near the back, out of the way, quietly observing while the room pulsed with tension. Residents who once nodded politely to Patricia now stared daggers, demanding answers. One board member, red-faced and clearly fed up, stood and pointed an accusing finger. "You told us we had legal backing for this nonsense. Now we're getting threats from the insurance company." The association's insurer had already sent notice. Coverage could be revoked due to potential exposure to lawsuits. Patricia, for once, wasn't in control. She tried to keep her voice steady, but her hands betrayed her, fidgeting with a pen that eventually snapped in two. When the actual HOA lawyer, not her nephew's so-called legal expert, explained she could be held personally liable, the illusion shattered. The board voted on her removal, 11-0. No hesitation. But that was only the beginning of Patricia's reckoning. The district attorney reviewed the mounting evidence and pressed charges for impersonating an officer and harassment. What followed was a full criminal trial. She was looking at possible jail time, up to 1.5 years and tens of thousands in fines. When the judge finally read the sentence, the courtroom was silent. 6 months of probation, a $25,000 fine, 300 hours of community service. Patricia froze, mouth agape. She turned to her lawyer, eyes wide and wet, whispering, "But I was only trying to keep the neighborhood nice." But people had already started piecing the truth together long before that verdict. After I filed my federal complaint, stories began pouring out. Turns out Patricia had been misusing her role for years. My neighbor Earl told me, while sipping black coffee on his porch, that she once tried to fine a family $500 because their daughter's bicycle didn't match the HOA's approved palette of colors. That family moved 3 months later. A deeper investigation by the Department of Justice revealed it went even further. She'd fabricated amendments to HOA regulations, forged meeting records, and even opened a separate bank account where she deposited fines. Money that was supposed to go to the association. A forensic accountant traced over $40,000 in suspicious activity. Her own nephew eventually testified against her, reluctantly admitting that she'd told him they were delivering official documents. Documents he later found out were entirely fake. The prosecutor presented emails Patricia had written to her sister, one of which bragged about cleaning up the area and claiming she'd take over nearby properties under the same pretense. One particularly damning message read, "After I deal with that federal agent's ranch, I'm going for the Thompson farm. These people need to understand property values are more important than their silly hobbies." Her defense tried to paint her as misinformed, not malicious. But when asked to cite any legal authority that permitted her actions, she faltered. "It's just common sense," she muttered repeatedly. "I was trying to preserve the community." The judge leaned forward, voice calm but sharp as steel. "You abused your position, intimidated residents, impersonated authorities, and committed financial fraud. Your personal belief in common sense does not override the law." Then came the kicker. In addition to the penalties, the judge said, You are permanently prohibited from serving on any homeowners association board within the state. You will turn over all HOA-related materials and cease all communication with Cedar Heights residents immediately. Patricia turned pale. For her, running the HOA wasn't just a job, it was her identity. She stood frozen, lips trembling, struggling to speak. "You can't do that," she whispered. "I started the beautification committee. I wrote the neighborhood standards. I am the Cedar Heights HOA." The judge brought the gavel down. "Not anymore." And with that, the courtroom emptied, leaving Patricia alone in her silence.